All right, let's do it live on a Friday edition of Cleveland Browns Daily. I am merely Bo, back here in God's country, Northeast Ohio. Dr. Z is in Indy. How you living, buddy?
You know, they call it the National Football League, the initials NFL. Not for long in Indy. Not for long. Getting ready to make the trip back very, very quickly. Excited to get in the ride, and we'll do that. But it's been an excellent time here. It really has been a good time here. I've really, really enjoyed it. I think we've learned a lot. I think we got, the things out of this that we wanted to get. Yeah, it's been great. It's been great, but ready to get back.
One of the things that we that always happens at the Combine is consensus forms.
Yeah.
So when you think of the trends of this Combine, and today was quarterback day, and you'll hear from Shedeur Sanders, you'll hear from Cam Ward. Both those guys had podium sessions. Neither one is going to throw. Most of them aren't throwing, honestly. There aren't many guys. Yeah.
Where's the outrage for Cam Ward not throwing? Of course,
I don't know.
None. Top quarterbacks don't throw, but there's a lot of outrage about Shedeur not throwing. A lot of outrage. Not anymore.
Somebody said that this week. I can't remember which one of the guests we had. It might have been Ryan Wilson who said if his last name wasn't Sanders.
Yep.
There's so much prejudice with him just because of him and everything that kind of comes with it. That
oh my goodness, my dad's initial position was absolutely not. You don't want the show and prime time and making music videos like the great hit "Must Be the Money." I was like, Dad, relax.
Yeah. So when you think of the storylines of the week, it obviously revolves mostly around quarterbacks, the ones that are there. And then I think even the bigger picture stuff was what has been swirling around Matt Stafford. Like that has been kind of the one constant of the week has been that. And then how that free agent market, which is going to be pretty robust, or the trade market, which could be pretty robust at quarterback, will set the table for what could happen in the draft by the time we get to April.
Yeah, I think the Matt Stafford domino is the big one. And it sounds like we might have a resolution on that quickly.
A lot of reporting.
Yeah, he's meeting with the Rams in person today. He apparently has offers from the Raiders and the Giants that would put him right around that $50+ million a year. I think it's like, 2 years or 3 years, 150 with like 90 something guaranteed.
Yeah, between 90 and 100 guaranteed, yeah.
So he's getting what he wants from a financial standpoint. And then the question will be, do the Rams want to match that? And the two teams we mentioned, the Raiders and the Giants, are both teams that, are looking for quarterbacks in this draft. It obviously was no coincidence that Matt Stafford and Tom Brady were there in Montana. And we didn't even get to talk about the fracas, you and I.
I want to. Let's do that in a minute. Yeah.
Okay. And it's interesting. If you would have asked me at 8 o'clock last night, or kind of at the happy hour time last night when I was out and about, the Giants were kind of out, and people thought the Raiders were the leader in the clubhouse, and the Rams would be if it wasn't the Raiders. But apparently the Giants maybe are trying to make a comeback into that mix again. So we'll see. Personally, if he goes to the Raiders, I think that's very good for the Browns. Now the Giants are at 3, and there is a lot of talk, and we're going to talk to Ben Albright, who tweeted it out, and he is not the only one. And I can tell you, I talked to a lot of people last night, a variety of NFL insiders, people that are here, that there's a belief that within the next 2 weeks, the Giants will attempt to go from 3-1, but that their target is Shedeur Sanders.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's also a belief, and there's more talk than I've ever heard, and it just happened, and we say something on this show, and then it becomes people talk about it. But Adam Schefter, and where's that soundbite in the rundown?
Yeah, we have it.
Is that in this opening segment?
Yeah, it's right
All
now.
Right, play
your rundown.
Play this for the Adam
right
Schefter
rundown
on Pardon My Take. I'm looking at Bo, dude. I'm not looking at a rundown.
You have two screens.
I'm trying to. I don't know if you know this or not, but what
the
I'm
two
doing
of them-
right
Bishop,
now.
Oh my God!
when
this
he
pleases
says
me
not
so
for
much.
long, I cannot express to you.
I was here at 10 o'clock, ready to go.
I believe I got a text message him during my morning duties, Gibby.
Yes.
He's
I'm
producing
aware.
the show.
I realized we were interrupting
Yes.
you, and I apologize.
Producing the
I want
show.
to apologize.
Seven-figure
Producing
deals.
Really
96-ounce tomahawks,
Sucking
the
down
gym,
tomahawks, workouts,
radio
pumps.
shows. Yeah.
G-Man,
Everything you'd
stop
want.
feeding into
By
it.
the way,
But
G-Man and I are.
This
By the way, you
alliance-
need to accept it. G-Man and I are a unit. We are a functioning
G-Man is-
team.
You're
The,
something.
the ice with which G-Man skates on is perpetually very, very thin. Like, it
No,
could
not
go any
anymore.
directions.
Not anymore. G-Man
For
G-Man
him.
is skating. It's feet thick, sheets of ice this thick. G-Man is G-Man
So-
stock. A lot of people are saying that his
People are
stock
saying
has
it.
never been higher.
So Schefter, what Z is referring
Yes.
to is a conversation Schefter had on Pardon My Take about
Yes.
the Browns at quarterback and 2. Here is that sound.
What about Cleveland? What can Cleveland do at the quarterback position?
To me, they have to draft a quarterback with their first pick, which I assume to be 2, but maybe they go up to 1 to lock it in. The guy they want, they're not very far from the top, and Tennessee could go back 1 slot and get basically whoever they want if they're not going to go quarterback. And the Titans are still going through their process. They've spoken to teams and told them, we're interested in talking, but we need to get through our process first, go through the combine, go through pro days before they derive their decision about what they're going to do at 1. Cleveland, to me, I predict it'll be a quarterback, period. I think they have to do quarterback. They're that high. They're that financially strapped with Deshaun Watson. There's that much of a need. You need something to uplift the spirits of the organization. I believe the Browns will go quarterback at 2.
I
You're
really
welcome.
feel like we should have been cited.
Yeah.
Credited.
Been saying
with-
that for 2 months.
Literally, yes. But for now, Adam Schefter to even mention the possibility of going up to 1,
Yeah.
I think that's newsworthy. We talked to Field Yates yesterday, and we discussed, Adam can be a tough interview because he doesn't give opinions.
No.
He's just telling you what he's heard, and his track record speaks for itself. So I think that's an interesting thing.
He follows the show that I do in the morning. He follows once a week on the show that follows me, and he doubled down on it again with them yesterday as well. Now he was quick to say, he kind of couched it as kind of like it seems so obvious, but as you and I have said, he's not in the business of predictions wildly. Like, it's
He doesn't
always
say what
sourced.
people should do.
No, never. No, he says what he thinks will do, or he says what's going to happen.
Yes.
is typically the way that it works. In terms of, I thought you had a great question we had AB on earlier in the week when you said, hey, what did you learn, if anything, from 16 in regard to Wentz and Goff and that whole circumstance? So you asked that question, and it was a great question to you, but you're not going to get the answer out of that because he doesn't want to tip his hand. So he's playing it obviously very, very close to the vest. But you and I have been adamant about that this week, and we've been adamant about it in the whole thing. This organization knows these 2 quarterbacks as good as anybody drafting. There may be other connections around the league that have similar to the ones that we have. I can't find them. But in terms of intimate knowledge of who Cam Ward is via Glenn Cook and his connections at the University of Miami, intimate knowledge of who Shedeur Sanders is via everybody that is on that staff, namely Pat Shurmur, who Kevin Stefanski worked under and views as a friend. We should know exactly what those 2 guys are. And even if there is a slight lean one way or the other, go to 1 and get the one you want.
100%. And I think that's why, again, I will say this. These are not scores from us. The last 2 months have not been scores.
No.
That is what and basically what we
want.
Thanks. What
We
we
good.
want
We.
and what we would do and what we think is the right thing to do. And there is a growing consensus around that. I can tell you from being here that there are 2 things that I think I know pretty definitively. That for the vast majority of people, not all, I'd say vast majority, probably 75-25, that Cam Ward is the number 1 quarterback in this draft. There are people who believe absolutely that Shedeur Sanders is the number 1 quarterback in this draft. There are many people who believe that both the Giants and the Raiders really like Shedeur Sanders.
Mm-hmm.
There are beliefs that we really like Shedeur Sanders because when you think of what Kevin wants a quarterback to do in his offense, Shedeur Sanders is the best kind of, as Field Yates said, hand-in-glove fit. the talent of Cam Ward creates a ceiling scenario that many people are very good. And listen, the guy I respect more than anybody else in this field, and that's not a disrespect to anybody else, is Greg Cosell. Mm-hmm. And Greg Cosell thinks that it's crazy that we're even talking about whether or not Cam Ward is worthy of the number 1 overall. He thinks that's a ludicrous. Yeah. The conversation doesn't need to be had. He is all in that he is the top quarterback in this draft. Not to say that he doesn't think you can win with Shedeur Sanders, but for Shedeur Sanders to be elite, MVP Super Bowl level, what you need to understand is, can he win the majority of plays before the ball's ever snapped? Because that's what allowed Tom Brady and Drew Brees and guys who or end of career Peyton, guys who were that good but maybe weren't the off schedule or second play players, that it appears Shedeur is going to be about, decision-making, accuracy, understanding. That's where he's going to have Joe Burrow. He said Joe Burrow, yes, he is an athlete. Yes, we saw him run the 40-yard touchdown. That's not his game. His game is deciphering and distributing the field. He's a field general, and that's what Shedeur would be. Whereas Cam Ward can be an explosive play maker, whether it's in structure, out of structure, in the pocket, out of the pocket, doesn't matter as much. And when are we playing Cosell?
Next week, I think.
Yeah, well, it'll be soon.
So
I have to allow for half a day.
Yeah,
it was amazing.
By the way, put it on my tombstone. Best compliment I've ever received professionally in this capacity is Greg Cosell said our conversation is his favorite conversation that he's ever had at the Combine.
How about that?
I said, I told G, man, put that on my tombstone. Should something happen to me?
Was that on air?
That was, he came over and talked to us before and was like, and he wants to, hopefully we're going to figure out a way to get him to do something with us in season, which would be epic.
Here's the thing that's so cool about Greg, other than his just mountains and mountains of knowledge. What I think is really cool about him is he's NFL Films. So
my guy watches 70 to 75 hours of tape a week.
Yeah.
Every week.
Every week. And what I think is really cool about it is he's not out there trying to put together a mock draft that he's trying to get clicks with. So he's doing it just from what he sees. There's no motive in terms of eyeballs or clicks or any of it. He's just telling you what he sees week in and week out. So it's that's the thing that is so cool about him is there isn't any sort of incentive to.
There's no agenda at all.
None. Zero.
You know what the agenda for him is? He is intellectually curious, and he wants to understand these players, understand the evolution of scheme and the chess match that is, the millions of data points and the millions of pieces of minutia that go into every play that's run in the NFL, offensively and defensively, how the guys fit into it. And it was interesting. We talked about, he said, probably 10 years ago, Shedeur would have been, hands down his number 1 quarterback. Because 10 years ago, defenses were not as good as generating unique pressure from the second level, third level as they are now. More plays were made in structure from the pocket than they are now, and that's where he excels. But now, if you think about the best quarterbacks in the league, they're all, or the majority of them, are people that can extend plays, do things outside the pocket, outside of structure. And so he thinks that has impacted his evaluation just of that position. So I think, he is constantly and intellectually curious about, and he just loves to talk ball. I mean, he's talking to defensive coordinators for a half hour here, a DB coach here to break down the nuances of their quarters coverage and how they're playing it now more with man technique on the outside as opposed to this off coverage on the outside, and no outside leverage on the outside because it gives you vulnerable. Just all of the little things, and that's why. And what's cool about it is he always goes back and kind of checks, what he sees and all that. But it's 30-plus minutes. And I think if you are a fan of football, you'll enjoy it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. He's amazing. And like I said, we're hoping to be able to do some things with him during season that would allow people, he also is the main kind of producer and tape watcher for the matchup show that he kind of created.
Matchup,
right, which he basically created.
That's the smartest show.
Oh, my goodness.
For what's happening schematically in football, that's the smartest. That's the best show.
Hopefully we're going to get him to do that and talk about our matchup every week, which would be, I think, invaluable to our audience. And quite frankly, I said, selfishly, it's going to be invaluable to me because it's going to help me do my job in the booth better.
when you're around him, you're just a sponge.
Totally. Listen more than you talk. Absolutely.
Yeah. Just get smart is kind of, all right, let's get smarter, kids. Like, that's kind of what it is when you have
and we
him
know
in.
we this week, I think, and I think Gibbe would agree, we've had an opportunity of so many talented people and plugged-in people here and have gotten to, have them on the show. And we have so many interviews that we still have to bring you over the course of the next week or so.
I was going to say, we have a ton. We have probably 7 or 8 interviews you're going to hear
they're
from
not
people
short.
all next week.
They're not short interviews.
They're thorough.
Yeah, they're thorough. They're good men and thorough.
So that obviously from our perspective, that has been the headliner, the 2 quarterbacks at the top, what type of jockeying you may have to do to make sure you get the guy that you want and leave nothing to chance. And
right.
Are the Browns willing to do that? So that's kind of the headline for us. But then the backdrop of all of this, which has now come front and center, is the quarterbacks everywhere else. And that started with Stafford. You mentioned some of the reporting on Stafford and some of that. It seems more and more as we get into today, and unless I've seen something change in the last hour, Stafford's going to meet with the folks in Los Angeles today and kind of make a decision on this. And so I thought that maybe the first thing that would happen would be Vikings with Darnold. But it seems like this Stafford thing is going to happen quickly, as soon as possibly today.
Yep.
It never made sense for me for him to leave Los Angeles.
I agree with that.
It didn't make sense for me for Los Angeles to let him leave. And if the only 2 options that he has are the Giants and the Raiders, how are any of those situations better than the situation he's in Los Angeles? And if Los Angeles can get close financially to what the Raiders and Giants are willing to pay him, wouldn't he just stay? Like, you want to go into New York. Now, you have Malik Neighbors, but you want to go into that pressure cooker of that division with the Super Bowl champions and an ascending Jaden Daniels with the Commanders and the Cowboys with a healthy Dak? Or do you want to go to the Raiders with that situation and have to deal with Mahomes and Herbert all the time and Knicks and the ascending Broncos? Like, to me, the Rams situation is far and away the best for him. But we don't know what's gone on behind the scenes there between him and the Rams management. And it seems like it's all been pretty copacetic. You got McVay doing podcasts being very open with, hey, we let him go look and see what's out there, but our intent would want to be for him to come back.
Yes. I do think that there have been some things that have been acrimonious down there. I think, what you had yesterday on our show, Andrew was talking about, obviously he knows the Rams situation pretty well, that there was some tension to all of that. I'm with you. That is the best path. I still think, and it's funny, last night we ran into our old pal Jake Trotter again, and we were talking. I'm like, why is nobody talking about Indy as a place that if you're a quarterback that you would want to go? And he was like, I've been saying the same thing. So we both agreed there. To me, that would be the place. So I'm saying Darnold. I think Indy's a great landing spot as well.
Seems like they're just going to roll with Richardson one more year, though.
I'm
with you, but yeah, it's what it seems like. Yeah. They're not mentioned on any of this stuff.
No, they certainly are not. Vegas is interesting in the sense that, and you're exactly right, brutal division. I mean,
jeez.
Chargers will be a playoff team. Broncos were. Chiefs have been in the AFC Championship game, 7 straight years. That is a brutal division. Bowers is a nice piece. Myers is a nice piece. They have so much money that they can, they could be like, we're going to go get T. Higgins. And all of a sudden, you've got a pretty solid squad there. So, and it's a dome. Vegas would be easy on his family. He wouldn't have to probably – I'm sure that he could convince them to fly him. It's a 20-minute hop over there, right? Or a 40-minute flight maybe.
Yeah, they wouldn't have to relocate if they didn't want to.
If they didn't want to, exactly. So, yeah, that part of it makes it – the Giants makes the least amount of sense to me, honestly. Yes. Vegas makes some sense. Rams makes the most sense, and we'll just have to see how it all plays out. But I think that domino – dropping is going to be it. The ripples will be felt, and I think they'll be felt kind of quickly.
Yes, it seems like today.
Yeah,
seems like we could have some certainty on that today. Did you glean anything else in the conversations yesterday about the rest of the quarterback market around the league?
Really, all people were talking about was Stafford and really us. I mean, those kind of feel like the 2 big things. Even the Sam Darnold piece, nobody's really talking about that as much as you would think they would coming off of the season that he had and the fact that he's still 27?
Yeah, he's 26, 27, yeah.
So he's still a young guy who has another decade in this league if he can continue to play at the level we saw last year. So I'm surprised that that's not getting more attention. Yeah, it really, and maybe it's because obviously a lot of the people I know I'm talking to know me and know what I'm doing, that I work for the Browns. And so it has been very Brown-centric. Obviously, a lot of talk about the Giants. The real consensus is the Titans are not taking a quarterback. And so the question becomes, there have been various debates, and I've heard so many things because it's a question I started asking people. All right, let's say the Browns did want to go from 2 to 1. What does it cost?
Yeah.
Who are you competing with? Now, the Giants 1 to 3, if Tennessee believes that quarterbacks are 1-2, which I think is a reasonable belief, that they still at 3 get the number 1 player they would have taken at 1.
Yes.
So on some ways, it would be a mini bidding war between us, I guess, and the Giants. But on the other hand, there's not a ton of leverage for them if they're not picking that guy. In my mind, and maybe I think about this incorrectly, but I heard similar to this, is that we throw them one of our thirds this year.
Yeah.
And they're like, cool, I still get – it's basically like I have the number 1 pick.
Yeah.
And I just picked up a free third-round pick.
Yeah, and furthermore, if you're the Titans front office, they got a brand new GM, all you got to do is say, we're open for business, and then right before you make the deal, call us and say, hey, can you top it?
Yeah, right.
And the reality is if we want to, we can.
And I do think we have, based on things that I've observed, I won't get into any specifics on this, but I think we have a pretty good relationship with the Titans GM. And so I think that we're going to have at least a reasonable opportunity to do what we want and at least to have an idea of what's happening.
There is, I do think the Giants, another consensus that happened this week is the Giants are the true wild card in this, that there is a tremendous sense of urgency for Joe Schoen. You saw that offseason Hard Knocks is going with the North Carolina Tar Heels.
I mean, I can't even believe that. And it is.
But you see why, because of what the Cammers picked up last. I can't believe those guys are still employed.
That
based on what the Cammers picked up.
That's stunning.
Yeah.
And the fact that that stuff made it past.
That somebody didn't stop it.
The edits. Yeah.
It's crazy.
I mean, it was so obvious that was I mean, we knew that right away. You felt better about us because you knew that there's one team we operate at a much higher level than.
Yeah.
So now it's going to be a matter of kind of deciphering that. And I think that's part of that, the intelligence gathering while you're here. If you're in on both quarterbacks, like truly, truly, truly in on both quarterbacks, we're in the catbird seat. If you're in on one quarterback, I think you just got to make sure you get him.
Yeah.
We're not a third-round pick, a fourth round, even a future, whatever it is.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter if we get that guy and we're right about it.
Yeah. All right, those are your hot topics of the day, presented by University Hospital's official healthcare partner of your Cleveland Browns. Speaking of those two quarterbacks, you're going to hear from them. You'll hear from Shedeur Sanders first, and then Cam Ward. It was podium day for the quarterbacks over in Indianapolis. We're off and running on a Friday edition of Cleveland Browns Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland. Hey, Browns fans, this month's winner of the local business platform presented by Minuteman is Redbeard Seasonings. Redbeard Seasonings started as a hobby in a home kitchen, has since blossomed into a collection of often original recipe flavors, pepper sauce, steak, and brisket chips, and even coffee. Check them out today to learn more about local business platform. Visit browns.com/community/local business platform. In the last 5 minutes, it is official. Matt Stafford is staying with the Los Angeles Rams. It started trending that way last night, felt more and more certain this morning. I think we've been pretty consistent all week. That seemed like the no-brainer. But now that domino has fallen.
Yes.
And so the Giants can pursue potentially moving up to number 1 or whatever their plan B is on this, and the same would be true of the Raiders.
The bottom line is you now have 3 teams in the top 6 for 2 quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
And so it would have been very nice had that domino fallen that ended with the Raiders or the Giants.
Yes.
For the Browns. Now, you're still, again, it goes back to
You're
it.
still in the catbird.
You're still in the catbird seat. But if you want one of them, and I do think there is a difference. I think the price tag for the Titans to move back to 6 is greater. That is not akin to them still having the number 1 pick. 2 or 3 probably is for them. 6 is not.
No.
So 7 is not if the Jets decide that they're going to come make a big move. So you're in the catbird seat, and I think if you're in on both of them, which you may be, then you're golden. You don't have to do anything. If it is one of them that is 10% better in your mind and you have more belief in, I want to be in the driver's seat. I want it to be all on me. I don't want to be, oh, yeah, we wanted this guy, and then Jared Goff 2016 happens again. I don't know. And this is another thing, and I'm not superstitious. I'm a little bit stitious. This is a Rams quarterback domino. Mm-hmm. Titans 1, Browns 2. Rams are involved here.
Yeah.
Let's not have that again. Yes, let's not have that again.
Yeah, so I'm with you, and here's the thing about these two. They're different enough that I reject the notion that you would view them, that you'd like them both the same.
It's not likely.
No. They're two very different players.
Yes.
And so you should have a consensus of thought on which one you like more. Now, you might be able to win with both. It might
Absolutely.
be one of those, hey, we're thrilled with either one of them. I can win with either one of them. That's kind of the error, not in regard to these two quarterbacks specifically, but the error that we got from Kevin Stefanski a couple of days ago when he was with us was like, I just felt better coming out of it. It's like it felt like he had some answers to the test with this offseason. So that made me feel good, not necessarily about these two quarterbacks, but just in general. And so maybe there's a feeling of like, hey, it doesn't matter. We can win with either one. We think they're both really good. But if there is one you favor, and I'm with you, if it's 5%, then go get the guy you like 5% more.
Yep.
Like don't let that stop you.
Yep.
So we had not have a chance. We're going to get to Shadur's, and then we'll get Cam in a minute. Have you talked to anyone who had a firsthand account of the Schultz Rapaport?
Yes.
I have not seen Jordan Schultz in person.
Big guy.
Okay.
It would be. I think the size discrepancy is this.
He's like 6'5".
It's the same as it would be like me and Siciliano, or Gibby and Siciliano.
Okay. This is great.
I even took a picture there. It was like making a pilgrimage to a historical site. I mean, we walked by. I must have missed it by less than 15 minutes.
Did you really?
Yeah, because that's where we walk.
I know we walk right through there, but like.
I must have missed it by 15 minutes. Yeah. I mean, it got talked about on Inside the NBA.
That was hilarious.
Yeah, and by the way, Shaq was totally Team Schultz. I do think this should be turned into a pay-per-view event. I know people are trying to make it a pay-per-view event. I don't think it'll ever happen. But I know you did not listen to the show yesterday. You were quite busy, but
yeah,
I had a good one in the opening segment that I enjoyed that I'll play for you.
Well, make it new. Yeah. Give it to me.
Give it to you. I said that the way that I saw that fight going is that they would get in the squared circle, in the middle of it, Rapaport would pretend to get a phone call from nobody, and the distraction, he'd get knocked out.
That'd be it.
And that'd be it.
It's just what struck me funny about it is those guys, that business is so ultra competitive that NFL newsbreaker, or I mean, look what, like with Shams and Woj, like what happened, how it was like his protege and then they kind of went at it. And I think it's just so competitive in that business. And for Ian to do what he did, like to go at him, it was definitely a shot, is the way I read it. Definitely a shot at Schultz's reporting, and almost a little bit about. I mean, there's just no question that's what it was.
Here's how I read it.
So then to lead to a confrontation like that, it's just I just adore it.
Here's how I read it. Schultz's report was accurate.
Yeah.
Rapaport and even Tom Pelissero to a degree, whether it was NFL, I don't know who was the one that asked them to carry that water. Maybe it was Brady's agent. Who knows? But their goal was to minimize the impact of an NFL owner and this that was happening that may have been somewhat out of bounds. Now, he had been given permission to seek a trade.
Yeah.
But I just think because it's Brady and because he's on TV, and now Schultz is a Fox guy.
Yes, he is.
I just think that the way, I mean, I think I'm pretty sure I have the right wording, but in like Pelissero, like according to an internet rumor or something like that, which was so dismissive. And I think Schultz was probably right and knew he was right. And so he was like, don't try to embarrass, like, not cool.
No.
And that's what led to it.
So
that's how I read it. That was,
I have the same read as you. That's the exact same read. That Rapaport, I didn't see the Pelissero stuff, but that Rapaport and then Pelissero apparently, that they were carrying water, as you said, for Tom, for the NFL, for the Raiders,
for somebody, yes.
All of it.
Yeah.
And that was like, was to undercut the reporting.
Yes. And I think
at the behest of someone else.
And he took great umbrage to that.
And I don't blame him.
Nor do I. Nor do I.
So the Stafford domino's fallen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And away we go. From Diana Rossini, The Athletic, the New York Giants are now shifting their interest to Aaron Rodgers. They've been discussing it all week in Indy, per sources.
So that's I said they felt like a wild card to me.
Yeah, they sure do. Interesting.
I mean, I could see that the pettiness of that would be something I feel like he would really love.
To go to the Giants?
Yeah.
Be in New York, he'd bring Devontae with him, so you'd have Devontae and Neighbors.
Yeah, and he doesn't have to move, and he shares the stadium with the team that said, "Yeah, we're done with you."
Yes. Yes.
I think the pettiness of that is kind of undefeated.
Yes.
I don't know if that's the best situation. I mean, Neighbors is amazing. I just think that's a snake pit of a division now, and I think the Giants are more than a 41-year-old quarterback away, which is why I didn't think Stafford should go there.
Yep. Yeah, here we go. Giddy up.
So
this is going to be
quick.
interesting. And again, we are in a good spot. And I think
that would be
we
great,
really,
by the way.
What?
That would be great, by the way.
Yes, Rodgers going there would be incredible.
And here's the other thing: the Giants wouldn't have to give him anything to get him. So if they wanted to add more weapons at number 3, they could.
So in their scenario, you could go. You could look at it this way. You could say Titans, Abdul Carter, Browns, Cam Ward or Shador, Giants, Travis Hunter. Now you got Rodgers with Hunter and Neighbors, and that's exciting.
Devontae and all that, yeah. Yeah. So dominoes are falling here quickly on a Friday afternoon around the league. The first one that fell was Stafford. I think it's curious how little has been talked about Darnold. It's just been really quiet on that all week long. Shador Sanders had his availability today over in Indianapolis. We're going to play some audio of his press session. Let's start with Shador on his mental abilities.
No, it's extremely important to keep your mental in the best place because that's what my game is played. My game's not played from my legs and not even just my arm. So I know longevity, the all-time greats, what's Tom Brady's best trait? His mental. He's able to think. So if you have those traits of greatness and I know where I'm heading, then why wouldn't the franchise pick me? You got the ultimate cheat code.
He doesn't lack confidence. Here's Shador on the idea of turning around a franchise.
I've been through 6 different OCs, so I'm able to adjust to any offense and every scheme and make it work. We went from Jackson State to Colorado and changed 2 programs back to back. So you don't think I could come to an NFL franchise and change the program again? It's history. We done it again. It's always going to repeat itself. That's the plan. If that's not what you're trying to do, don't get me. If you ain't trying to change the franchise or the culture, don't get me. So you should know history repeats itself over and over and over, and I've done it over and over and over, so it should be no question why an NFL franchise should pick me.
You got a little bake in him.
I like that. Yeah, definitely
Bake
confident.
had a combine session like that.
Yeah. I'll do it. I'm not afraid,
Yeah.
and he's not afraid. That was one thing. Was it Charles Davis that said just when you're around the confidence, you want to see the confidence in the guys on the field, and you certainly, with Shedeur, you get that. You see his calmness, his confidence, and then, the tape would tell you as a guy who plays, honestly, his best football in the biggest moments. So that's, in many ways, that's the job in the NFL. Like last year, Mahomes with the Chiefs, they weren't great, but when they needed it, they got it done. Now, they got boat raced in the Super Bowl, but I can tell you that every Eagles fan in the world, had that game been different and say they were up 6 and Mahomes got the ball back with 2 minutes left, they would be not feeling great about what was to come.
No, full-on panic mode. Shedeur has critics, lots of them. When you're as famous as he is, and especially as famous as his dad is, that's going to come. Here's Shedeur on those critics.
You think I'm worried about what critics say or what people got to say? You know who my dad is? They hated on him too. So it's like it's almost normal. Without people hating, it's not normal for us. So we like the adversity. We like everything that comes with the name. That's why we are who we are.
It's funny. That's become kind of a trope. I saw LeBron had a comment last night about Anthony Edwards not wanting to be face of the league, and kind of like, I don't blame him. I didn't want it, but I felt like I had to. All of these things. Like, you and I are of an old enough age, and I'm not going to pretend that I was, Chris Mortensen in those days and that I was paying attention to every single rumor around the NFL. I don't remember anybody hating on Deion Sanders other than Tim McCarver because he played a World Series game and a football game in the same day, and Deion poured ice water on him. Can you think of one criticism of Deion Sanders as a player? I feel like he was universally beloved.
He didn't tackle.
That was like Chuck Bednarik.
Yeah, who cares? He didn't get paid to tackle. As Deion said, they're not paying me to tackle.
No. There was no credit. I mean, he was just like universally lauded as the best corner of a generation. But yet, when you're that way, you find things to motivate.
Deion starts in the game, the ultimate game.
He's one of the corners.
Yeah, he might even be a kick returner.
Yeah, probably would be. Here's Shedeur on if he wants to be picked number 1.
The number of where you go don't matter. Like I say, and this is why I reference Tom Brady, because he was the best of the best in all categories. He didn't go first. So the number getting picked don't matter. I wasn't the top-rated quarterback coming out of high school because it's a lot of exterior things that people like and they don't like about me. And I'm realistic, and I'm realistic about my family and everything that people say it comes with.
Yeah, he's been now, the one thing I will say is he's right. He did turn around Jackson State. He did turn around Colorado, both of those spots. Colorado especially that's a very tough thing what they did in 2 years to get them to respectability and bowl eligibility and really on the cusp of playing for the Big 12 championship with a couple of weeks left to go in the season. I mean, that was a bad job. But the other part of that equation is the circumstances that he finds him in have also been curated by his dad. And so they've delivered on all of those things, but they have been situations where he has been put in the best possible position. I thought it was interesting to hear that he'd been to 6 different coordinators.
6
I know they switched in the middle of the road his freshman season at Colorado. I want to say his name was Sean Lewis, who I want to say was at Kent.
Yes.
And then went – do I have that right?
Very excited about this, yes.
Yeah. So he was hired out there to be the OC, and then they switched to Pat like in the middle of the season. So I know that he had the 2 at Colorado. I was unaware that he had all of those coordinators at Jackson State too.
Yeah, and I'd say the most recent one, as you talked about the Browns are going to know better than anybody, is someone that is very close with our head coach, Pat Shurmur.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. Yeah.
People forget it, even though it didn't work out for sure. Like, he was the assistant coach of the year that year when he was the OC. Kevin's the quarterback coach, and then that's how he got the head coach job with the Giants.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's had a lot of NFL eyes around him and minds around him, and you see it. I mean, he's a very, very confident kid. Cam Ward doesn't lack for confidence either. I think Z is spot on with his 75% number. It feels like 75% of the people over there preferred Cam to Shador, but of course it's in the eye of the beholder. Cam had his press availability this morning as well. We will have some of that for you coming up next. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily, presented by Bally Bet, official sports betting partner of Cleveland Browns on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Add more fun to your fandom with the Bally Bet Sportsbook app. Download today and get $50 in bonus bets. You place your first wager at 10 or more. Bally Bet is official sports betting partner of your Cleveland Browns. Shedeur Sanders, we heard from him at his media availability. Now let's hear from Cam Ward, the not consensus, but the presumptive top-rated quarterback in this NFL draft. Here is Cam Ward on his meeting with the Browns.
It went real good. Being able to meet with the GM, finally meet the quarterbacks coach in person. The OC as well. They do an unbelievable job on offense, getting people open. They got an unbelievable offensive line. Jerry Jeudy's one of the best receivers in the league. So, if I'm hoping to go there, I know it'll work out good.
Here is Cam Ward on his best trait.
I think my best trait is winning from the pocket, and I got better at that over my years throughout college. And at the end of the day, as a quarterback, you can't rely on scramble drill and, having to win out of structure. Because you can't win in the pocket, you'll never be successful.
Here's Cam Ward on what he wants teams to know about him.
That I'm willing to do anything, that takes to win a football game, whether it's be a gunslinger all day or, have to hand the ball out a couple times. So, at the end of the day, I know what type of player I am. The team should know what type of player they get in me. And so, I'm just going out there to try to do my best for myself and my future teammates.
And finally, what sets him apart?
The tape says everything, I believe, and I'm honest to that. But I think just what separates me from everybody is the way I approach it, the mindset that I have going into the field each and every game. Coming from, my journey, not a lot of people can do that. And so I just think it shows, the work that I'm willing to put in, whether I go first round or second round. At the end of the day, that draft pick don't mean nothing. It's all about, establishing yourself once you get the opportunity.
What strikes me about this, I don't know what made it pop into my head right now, but I don't think we've ever known more about prospects starting all the way back 14, 15 years old, all the way through high school, through college. I mean, the hit rate on quarterbacks who are rated high in high school, in college, has become pretty dang good. Most of them are hits, and most of the time it works very, very well. Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders have very little in common in both style of play, upbringing, road to the NFL. But one thing they absolutely have in common is neither one of these guys was Quinn Ewers. And Quinn Ewers is there. He talked today, and he's going to throw at the combine. Quinn Ewers was viewed coming out of high school as a perfect prospect. He was a perfect 1,000 prospect on the 24/7 recruiting sites. These two guys worked their tails off to get to this point and took roads, not that Quinn didn't, not saying that he didn't, just saying that they took roads that are kind of abnormal for the number one pick in the draft.
Yeah.
In recent years especially.
It's very interesting. Is the last time it kind of came out of, a year before, and his road obviously, or maybe actually a college football Nate does not know, but like Kyler Murray was not even thought of as a potential number one pick the year before he was the number one pick.
No, but he was the number one quarterback in high school coming out.
Was the number? Okay, so he was.
And he went
like
to Texas A&M and then transferred to Oklahoma. I just think people thought he would play another year at Oklahoma.
Okay.
I don't think anybody thought he would come out. The most similar to this is probably Burrow. Burrow was the only major Division I offer Burrow had was Ohio State, and that's just because Tom Herman, the offensive coordinator at the time, went and saw him play in person in Athens and called Urban Meyer and said, "I got your next Alex Smith." But even there's some similarities between Shedeur and Burrow, and I've heard those comparisons
Absolutely.
this week in terms of style of play.
Yep.
But much more similar to Cam was Burrow, that coming out of after his second to last season at LSU, nobody would have thought that he was going to go number one overall. I mean, that was a Justin Herbert, Tua Tagovailoa, flip a coin. Those are the presumptive guys, and both those guys went in the top 10. But Burrow wasn't considered. I mean, his final season, that's when it went nuts. And so there's some Cam parallels there, while there's some stylistic similarities to Shedeur.
Yes. I'll tell you, I like both of them from the podium standpoint.
Yeah.
I like Cam Ward just feels kind of like a no-nonsense.
Yes.
Like just cold-blooded competitor, which I
Buddy,
like.
He's an option quarterback out of high school who goes to Incarnate Word and then Washington State before heading to Miami. I mean, that is an atypical path as you're going to find.
It's completely. Another thing that I would say a lot of people have talked about is how quickly his ability at each stop to make a rapid ascent, massive improvement.
Yeah.
People really like that, and you project that he can continue this ascent. That you're talking about somebody with a tremendous amount of gifts, and maybe, because of that background, you're getting somebody that once he becomes a master of the position could be great.
Yes. Yeah. No. Yeah. It's just really cool because they both have come from such different circumstances. They're very, very different players. The one thing you feel coming out of this week is you can win with both of them. But as we've said, you have a feeling that you're going to know that this organization knows that they lean one way or the other, and making sure you get the guy you want is job one, I would say, of the next couple of weeks.
Couldn't agree more. Could not agree more.
All right, we will be visited with one of our favorites, NFL insider Benjamin Albright will join us at the top of the hour. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. OBM, the preferred provider of copiers and document services for your Cleveland Browns. They'll tackle any size office. Give them a call at 216-485-2000 or visit ohiobusinessmachines.com. He's one of our favorites. He's NFL insider and radio host in Denver at KOA Radio. He's Benjamin Albright. He joins on the Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea Hotline. Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea, official sponsor of your Cleveland Browns. Keep it twisted, Cleveland. Ben, thank you so much for the time. Let's just start with the news of the last hour. Matthew Stafford back to the Rams. It looks like reportedly the Giants are considering the Aaron Rodgers world. What are you hearing, and what do you make of those two big events of the last hour or so?
Well, Stafford was the domino that had to fall. And of course, he had interest from several teams. The Giants were willing to put boatloads of money in front of him, but he wasn't really interested in them. There were a couple other teams that called. But really, it was down to, do I take the Raiders offer, do I take the Rams? And things were trending the Raiders' way over the last couple of days. And the Rams finally, the cooler heads, I think, finally got the better of themselves. They set a meeting for 6:30 this morning, and they hashed it out with Stafford, and they're going to get that done.
Ben, you tweeted yesterday about the Giants and potentially a trade up to number one. They were going for Stafford. Now we hear a report, I think it was Diana Rossini, said that now they are going to pursue Aaron Rodgers. Let's just take that part of it out of it. Actually, first, are you surprised about that report?
No, and in fact, I'll say this: if the Giants had gotten Stafford, or if they get Rodgers, I don't think it precludes them from trading to one to get a quarterback at all. Either one of those two guys, you were getting a 2-year rental at best, or are getting a 2-year rental at best. And so, in that particular situation, I would not be. I don't think that takes the trade to one off the table.
So that being said, you tweeted about a potential Giant trade with Titanic implications. Who do you think that the Giants trade to one? Who have you heard, or what is your belief that trade would be to acquire what player?
Well, it could be either one. It would be the quarterbacks, and the idea is to put yourself in the driver's seat and then continue this scouting process so you're in the driver's seat to be able to get, whichever one you ultimately settle on. They've spent a lot of time scouting Shedeur Sanders. They were out at Colorado for every game this year. I can personally attest to that. So, I know they have interest here. I know they have interest in both. The question is, what you ultimately settle on, and this is kind of the time where you really get to know these guys and kind of finalize that. And I think they just want to be in the driver's seat. I think they know that they have to get the quarterback. They have to get that situation right, and I think they're going to take multiple swings at it here to try to accomplish that.
So that being said, you're the Browns at 2. I think the Browns very much would want to control their destiny and control the board as
I'm
well
sorry? You're
in
the Browns
this draft.
at 2 what now?
I'm saying I think the Browns at number 2 want to control their board and get the quarterback that they want. So if you have a situation where the Browns and the Giants both want to try to get up to 1, that does create a little bit of a bidding war. But what do you think that compensation – we just lost him. He's at the Denver airport. So, I'll tell you what, he gave us news in a very brief period of time there in the Denver airport, so we appreciate that. And to me, the news is Rodgers, Stafford would not have precluded the Giants from going to 1 to get a quarterback.
I'm not one to – Ben is well-sourced and absolutely locked into it. That would be so surprising to me. Because if you were getting Aaron Rodgers, or especially if you were getting Matthew Stafford's at least a 3-year window. You'd be looking at it that way. And if you were acquiring a 37, or in the case of Aaron Rodgers, a 41-year-old quarterback.
That's different to me. Rodgers and Stafford are different to me.
But here's why I don't think it's – I think they are different to your point, but I also think the spirit of it isn't different. I don't know that Aaron Rodgers is going to mentor anybody.
He's
Fair.
back.
That's the part that's interesting to me is if Rodgers goes Giants, would you want to put Shedeur or Cam in a situation where they're in the same quarterback room as Rodgers? And here's the deal. I know A.J. Hawk really, really well. He loves Rodgers, loves him. And we heard from Aaron Glenn earlier in this week that when they told them that they weren't bringing Rodgers back, there were a lot of people upset about it in the room. So there is a public perception of him that's maybe different from the in-the-room perception, but the idea of going up to get a quarterback at 1, and I think we have Ben back, that would be a real personality test on Rodgers. That'd be a big gamble, I would think, Ben.
Yeah, I mean, sorry about the connection there.
No, you're good.
I don't think either one of those guys are there. I don't think that this is a mentorship situation. I think it's about a stopgap for now, and then growing the young quarterback with their coaches. I don't think that there's a mentorship component to this. I just think both these teams recognize, hey, look, we got to take swings at the quarterback or we're all getting fired. And so I think that I don't want to call it desperation, but it kind of is, where you just look, we're going to put as many bullets in the chamber as we can and see what fires.
And by the way, when you think about just Aaron Rodgers' history himself, he was in a quarterback room with Brett Favre, who was not thrilled that he was there. And when he was with the Packers, they drafted Jordan Love, and he wasn't thrilled. Yeah. But I would say in both cases for the Packers, they're happy with the way both of those things turned out. So I do think that one is interesting. I felt like, Ben, as we were here for the week and going around and talking to people, that not everybody, because I did run into people that had Shedeur as QB1, that most people are of the opinion that Cam Ward is that top quarterback, and some people think there's a bigger separation between the two than others. If that's the case, going back to what we were talking about with the Browns, what do you think the compensation to go to 1 is if you're the Browns at 2 or the Giants at 3? Because in reality, it could mean for the Titans the same thing, right? They still get Abdul Carter, and they pick up some type of an asset.
Yeah, I don't think it's a whole heck of a lot. I mean, for the Titans, I just think you're just trying to make money on this because you're the Titans. You do want Abdul Carter, right? So I think if you're in that position, I think you'll take what you can get. Now, if you get the Browns convincing the Giants that they're on a quarterback and they're on specifically the one that the Giants favor, then all of a sudden, that moved up and Titans can extort them for a little bit more. I don't think it's that much. I mean, you go back and look at the cost the Bears paid to move up with the Niners, and that's pretty much the starting point for Mitch Trubisky.
Ben, you have the idea, the fact that you do your show out of Denver, you're in close proximity to Boulder and the University of Colorado. It was a 2-year run for Shedeur and his dad, Dion, and brother as well. You would have a pretty intimate knowledge of what you're getting if you draft Shedeur Sanders. What is your view of him?
Well, you're getting a high football IQ guy. I mean, he's smart. He doesn't have what you'd call elite quarterback tools. He's not elite mobile, but he's quick enough to buy time. But he's smart and he throws the anticipation. Doesn't have the biggest arm. I think there are comparisons out there to Teddy Bridgewater before the injury. I think that's probably the fairest comparison out there. I think a lot of people unfortunately think of Teddy after the injury, but Teddy before the injury is probably the fairest comparison of what it is that you're getting.
What about off the field? What was that like in Boulder?
Well, I mean, you don't have to worry about him getting money and going crazy. He's from money. He came up that way. He's had the NIL deals. He's got his fingers in other pies. He's got, other endeavors, the rap stuff and all that. But, I don't think any of it's a distraction or a problem. He is, you have to know you're getting a brand, not just a player, but at the same time, I don't think it's going to be anything that's going to be troublesome.
Interesting. And what do you kind of, from those standpoints, what's your take on maybe what you've heard more? He's not obviously in Colorado, but what you've heard about Cam Ward from those standpoints, from personality and leadership?
Well, yeah, you're getting a different. That's a little bit different. He's a guy that's come up the old-fashioned way, and Shedeur's the guy who's getting mentored by Tom Brady early on.
Yeah.
Cam didn't have those same benefits. A little bit different there. You're getting a guy that's a little more grounded, I think. Probably a little bit more relatable in the locker room, if that makes sense. Not that I think that Shedeur can't lead or be relatable, but he just comes from a different world, and so I think with Cam, you're getting somebody that's probably got broader appeals.
Ben, big picture quarterback now. We got the Stafford domino that's going to fall. We have the reports of Rodgers. Potentially the Giants' focus could go there with Aaron Rodgers. But there's a bunch of other ones, whether it's Russ or Daniel Jones. Sam Darnold is obviously a big one out there. What do you think kind of the timeline is on all of those other quarterback decisions? We heard general managers say, Derek Carr's coming back, Cousins coming back. But you take people for about a grain of salt when they're talking at the combine. What do you make of the rest of that quarterback dominoes, and which one do you think falls first?
Well, I'm not sure either one of those are coming back despite reports. I mean, fiscally, you look at the Saints, I'm not even sure it's feasible to do that. So, we'll kind of see how those things play out. The Sam Darnold thing is going to be interesting. I think the Raiders are going to kind of pivot that direction and then eyeball a draft pick as well. You've got the Titans that are looking around. Pittsburgh's got to figure out their situation. They've got contracts in front of their guys, but they're kind of, low ball offers. So I think you'll see one of those fall next, and everything will really kind of fall in the next couple of weeks. The Carr and Cousins situations can be protracted because they have them under contract, but I expect that carousel to ignite pretty quick.
Ben, you're the best, buddy. Thanks for joining
thanks for
us
checking in.
from the airport in transit. We greatly appreciate you, pal.
Yeah, guys. Take care.
All right, there he is, Benjamin Albright, KOA Radio out of Denver, NFL insider, joining on the Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea Hotline. Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea, official sponsor of your Cleveland Browns. So you've done it.
We've done it, and I can tell you, just as I was milling around here in our stack, talked to a few people, there were varying opinions on the podium sessions today in terms of what people heard and how they heard what they heard about these two quarterbacks.
It's in the ear of the beholder, if you will.
Yes, it is in the ear of the beholder. It's very good.
Yeah, you hear what you want on these things, I think. And this is one thing that I think we're in for, and I think today really kicked it off with the Stafford deal getting done and then this reporting of Rodgers with the Giants. I think there's going to be some this is going to be a very busy 2 weeks leading into the free agency in a couple weeks. Yes.
Well, and because I'm going on vacation, it guarantees something will happen wild on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. So I'm planning on. I am prepared to call in from Puerto Rico.
It's been
my
a full
track record
gamut.
is pretty good.
It's unreal. If you're out of the state of Ohio, book it. We're doing something big. It just has happened every single time.
Every time. So I'm ready. Amazing. So buckle up, Browns Nation.
Yeah, I want you to as you're on your drive eastbound and down, and you're about, I don't know, probably about 5 miles outside of the Ohio state line. I want you to pay very close attention to the road signs and the juxtaposition of several attractions that are at the border of Ohio and Indiana.
I'm sure I have a sense of what you're talking about, and
but
things might be very diametrically opposed. Yes, I can't wait.
Remarkable.
On that note, I want to see this sooner, so I'm gonna.
Yeah, I'll tell you this. The other thing I think you're really going to enjoy is that 2 days ago they changed the speed limit to 55 all the way through. You can't hit 70 miles an hour for about 30 miles.
Out of town?
Indy.
Yeah. That's always the case.
No. It just changed 2 days ago. It's even further.
Because of work?
I went. Yeah. I when I drove on Wednesday, I probably went. I would say between 15 and 25 miles, somewhere in there, where I did not reach a maximum speed of more than 57 miles an hour.
Okay, thank you.
So good luck.
Thank you. I'm not excited about that. That I don't like.
Safe travels.
I've had a great time here. Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody. Everybody did a great job. Gibbe, G-Man, Dr. J. The whole crew.
Folks.
Yeah, everybody did a great job. It was, I think, might have been one of my favorite combines ever, to be honest with you. I think we accomplished
other than
a
the
great
uncooked
deal.
meats. Sad. Hate to see it.
It's the king of all the meats. Treat it with respect.
We will be joined by Dane Brugler for a monster conversation starting next. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Elk and Elk, serious lawyers, serious injuries. Call 1-800-ELK-OHIO for a free case review. Elk and Elk's proud partner of your Cleveland Browns. Now here is part one of our conversation with Dane Brugler. One of the real treats of coming to the NFL Scouting Combine here in Indianapolis is seeing our old buddy Dane Brugler every year. It warms the heart, smile on the face to
Pure
see
joy.
you, buddy. One of our all-time favorites. It's great seeing you. For where you are in your process with the Beast, where are you right now? And what, if anything, do you take from this week?
This week is a big cross-checking exercise. It is a chance to, okay, all the hay's in the barn, all the work's been done, tape's been watched. Now, okay, let's see them back it up here at the Combine. Mm-hmm. So that's everything from the on-field stuff, see how they move in space, the drills, 40-yard dash, the position-specific drills, the gauntlet for receivers, the wave drill for offensive linemen, defensive linemen, just to see the way they move in space. And it's great here because what's different from the pro day is everybody's here doing it in repetition, so you have an immediate frame of reference.
Yeah.
If one guy does it really well or really poorly, then, okay, compare that to the next guy and the next guy. And so just that repetition and frame of reference is really helpful. And so, yeah, for me, it's just one big cross-checking exercise. If something doesn't match up with what the tape says, all right, we got to go back and do more homework, figure out, all right, what are we missing maybe? Obviously, the biggest part of this, the medicals, the interviews. For me, it's a chance to, I've talked with most of these players at this point, but fill in some gaps. Just try to, that's what the Beast is all about, right, is all the details and background stuff. And so trying to get as much of those little nuggets in there as possible is something that really important to me.
Most interesting fact about a player that you've come across for this year's Beast?
Trey Harris, the receiver for Ole Miss, was Malik Neighbors' quarterback in high school. So they go back, and actually Trey Harris was going to focus on basketball. He was going to. I'm a basketball player now, not football.
He's an athlete.
Yeah, absolutely. But it was Malik Neighbors that said, "Hey, man, I need a quarterback. Like I know I'm good, but if I don't have a quarterback to get it to me." And so he kind of talked Trey to come back to the team, and he was his quarterback through the remainder. And then he made later at Louisiana Tech. Trey Harris made the switch to receiver, and then at Ole Miss. And so it worked out pretty good for both of them.
Where is he in the board? Is he a?
He's a top 75 guy.
Okay.
I like him a lot. I mean, he's not a burner. He's not just going to run by guys.
So
but
day two, day two.
He'll be somewhere on day two. Maybe, and this is a weird receiver class where it's. In most years, I feel like we're saying, all right, what's the strength of the draft? Oh, the receivers, the corners, the athletes. It feels like we have so many of those guys. This year, it's kind of the opposite, where defensive line is the strength, and receiver and corner is a little bit lighter. And so because of that, I wouldn't be surprised if Trey Harris goes top 40, even higher, just because teams want guys that can affect the scoreboard.
Yeah,
and they want.
Yeah, absolutely.
Look at last year. I think he might be probably better than a guy like Jalen Polk, and Jalen Polk went in the top 40 last year. And so if teams are really reaching for receiver help, won't be surprised at all if Harris goes pretty early.
I do this thing. I very rarely listen to other sports talk radio because I don't want something to get into my head.
Sure.
Even if it's not something that is intentional, but sometimes things slip in. Do you have that here where you are in your convictions and you don't kind of want to hear what other draft analysts have to say?
I mean, he was breaking bread with Greg
I know,
Cosell
that's
last
right,
night, so I'm sure things came up.
Because it's your conviction,
Sure.
right?
Well, and I'm not arrogant enough to think that I have all the answers. So, there's a handful of people that I trust in the media side that I will compare notes with. Greg Cosell being one of them. Daniel Jeremiah is one of them. Lance Zierlein I talked to quite a bit. Just texting back and forth, trading notes like, hey, did you see this with this guy? Am I missing something? So I can count them on one hand, the number of people that I do that with. But really it's more with scouts because I know, they've got so much on the line with these guys and they've done all the work. And so comparing notes with scouts really helpful in my process just to make sure I'm not missing something that maybe I'm watching the wrong tape, and maybe there's something in my process that I'm overlooking.
Yeah.
When you list off the people that you did, do you have certain people that you have found you like to get their takes on certain things? I know with Lance, for example, the
offensive
lines,
line,
for sure. Is that something you've kind of cultivated to be like, all right, I want to check my receivers with this guy, I want to check my quarterbacks here, my lines there?
Yeah, no doubt. And offensive
That's cool.
line, Lance for sure. Brandon Thorne does an outstanding job with offensive linemen. I'm still trying to find someone that I trust implicitly with quarterbacks. We've all got those misses, right?
We all are.
Yeah, exactly.
The whole
So,
league is.
If you know a quarterback whisperer, let me know, because I'd love to talk to him and kind of bend his ear a little bit, find out more, especially with this class where we're going to have to dig a little bit more with these quarterbacks, yeah.
And we're going to dive into that in a second, but I think it's always interesting for people to, because I'm sure you see anytime you post a mock draft or anytime you post, your big board or whatever you want, whatever phrase you want to use, there's a lot of real strong conviction in your mentions from people who perhaps maybe have not spent the time that you have on it. For those amateurs who would like to, back some of their very strong takes up with tape, what's kind of a way that you would say kind of tape 101, how people can start to get into that world, and we'll stay with quarterbacks because it's, I think, obviously it's the Cleveland Browns show. We need a quarterback, so it's, I think, at top of mind. What are the things that you are watching for, and do you have a style? One thing somebody told me a long time ago when I did it was run the play, and I don't know if you have any little things like this or if you even think that this is a good thing, run the play just a few seconds so there maybe the receivers are 5 to 10 yards down the field, pause it. At that point, you've seen the coverage rotations. You know what the coverage is playing. You have an idea of the concepts, and you have an idea. You can say to yourself, okay, where should this ball go? Yeah. And then see if it actually does go there.
Right, exactly.
To kind of quarterback stuff, what are things that you do that people who want to kind of be more educated about this can do?
It's a smart way to look at it, and I first and foremost start with the opponent. Understanding what's the personnel like it. And more so than just like, okay, this team or this quarterback is facing Arizona State. Okay, was Arizona State any good on defense? And what are their corners like? What kind of coverage do they like to play? So getting an understanding before you go into the tape about what the quarterback, and it's kind of like what you're saying, like understanding what the quarterback is going to be facing from a talent perspective. Because, okay, if, a quarterback has 5 touchdowns against a certain defense, it's like, oh, wow, that looks great. But it turns out the defense isn't very good. And I don't know how much you're learning from that tape. So making sure you're watching, in a perfect world, you're watching every tape. But in a more condensed way of doing this, you're watching, especially with quarterbacks, 7, 8 tapes. But making sure you're paying attention to the ones that matter because they're facing a really good defense with good defenders, guys that will be playing at the next level. And then I like that, the way you phrase that about how, let the play run for a beat or two, roll it back, and then try to understand, okay, based on this coverage, his eyes should be looking here. And that's the biggest obstacle when watching tape is we don't know the play call. We don't know what they've been coached to do.
On the progression, sure.
Exactly. And so, based off of first read, second read, they're easy to point out, like, oh, I should have got to a second read faster. You want to see guys eliminate things quickly when that first read is not there. But there are times where quarterbacks, the first read is actually over here, but he starts there to draw the safety. So there are just so many, and I've been doing this for 20 years at this point, but understanding the quarterback position from just a micro level where you get a better sense for what he's being asked to do is something that, we'll be trying to figure out through the end of time. Yeah. And so every year you feel like maybe you get a little bit better, you pick up on these different things, but it's a never-ending process that, I don't think there's no such thing as a true quarterback expert when it comes to these evaluations because it's college to pro is such a jump physically, mentally, just their personality, that when you factor in all those things, it just makes it a tough position to project.
Where do you come at, and when you're kind of going through your evaluations, because when you do watch these tapes, you can get a sense of a couple of things, and one would be traits, right?
Yeah.
Arm strength. How can they attack every blade of grass? What are their fundamentals within that? What is their athleticism? What's their escapability? What is their pocket presence? And then there's the other side that is kind of intangibles, and that is the decision-making, the instincts, the ability to throw with anticipation, the ability to understand very quickly what a coverage is doing and then say, okay, process that, and that means the ball needs to go here, and then be able to physically do that. How do you kind of balance? Because it's a position where the reality is you need all of those, but that's Andrew Luck maybe.
Exactly.
There aren't a lot of those guys,
exactly.
So you have to say what matters ultimately more.
Every position you have in your mind a list of the key traits you're looking at for the position. And it's tough from my point of view because I'm doing this from a very general standpoint. Where if I'm a Brown scout, obviously I have a certain scheme that I'm that I'm looking for, a certain culture that I'm looking for. So that changes things. But from a generalized standpoint, especially with quarterbacks, top 2 are non-negotiable. It's decision making and accuracy. You need those 2 things. That's where you start. But sometimes you can maybe inflate that a little bit. Like Bryce Young was a good example of that, where worried about the size, the arm was fine, wasn't great, it wasn't terrible, it was fine, and so. But his decision-making and his accuracy were so impressive at Alabama. It was like, you know what? Yeah, I really like C.J. Stroud, really like him. But Bryce Young's going to be my number 1 quarterback because he does the first 2 things so well. And then he gets to the NFL, and it's like, oh, man, if you don't have those other physical traits, it's so tough. And Bryce Young has gotten better and better. Like, it's taken a little bit of time as he kind of rebuilds his confidence. And I think he's going to be fine.
He seems like he's in a good spot now.
Yeah. He's in. It took a little bit of time just because I think he got beat down and because of the situation in Carolina too, but not having those physical traits, you really miss that, and so it's something to consider. As you try to weigh, okay, yeah, he has accuracy, has decision making, but does he have the necessary arm where it fits within the way he likes to play? So it might be a segment or a
no, that's a
transition to
perfect
Shedeur,
segue into
but,
Shedeurs, right? So you're talking about, and it's perfect. And we know people who have been following you who know for sure Cam Ward is the top quarterback on your board in this draft, and you're not as high on Shedeur as some others might be. But I would imagine that impacts you, right? You go back to your notes and you say, well, here's what I thought really was going to translate right away for Bryce Young, and then it didn't as well. Now, I think in some offenses, and I think if we're talking, Shanahan, McVay, Stefanski, those traits, I think, can overcome others just because of the way that things are schemed up for a quarterback. You look at the success Brock Purdy's had, obviously,
no doubt,
in San Francisco. But that you're looking more scheme agnostic as opposed to into it. And then there's the argument, right, or the debate. Do you want the best ball of clay, which you're 100% sure is Cam Ward in your mind, and then you coach that into your scheme or modify it to fit what he does best, or are you looking for the person whose best attributes match what your scheme asks them to be?
Right, and you better be convinced that the guy that has the flashier traits, like a Cam Ward, that he's smart enough and wired the right way to do it. And all the feedback I've gotten on Cam Ward is he absolutely fits that in terms of his intelligence. I have one scout say of all these quarterbacks, he has the biggest chip on his shoulder, with just the way that he attacks. And then I think you feel optimistic about, okay, wing T quarterback in high school, goes to Incarnate Word, leads the FCS in passing touchdowns, goes to Washington State, gets better, and then he goes to Miami, and he had this tremendous season where he Heisman contender, production was outstanding. Wasn't perfect, but it was well above average. So it's like, okay, I feel good about who he is now, but he's continuing to ascend. We're getting him on the up. And so where is he going to be 2 years from now, 3 years from now, when we get a chance, our coaches get our hands on him and really figure him out? So that's why, to me, Cam Ward, if I had a bet on a quarterback in this class, regardless of scheme and what exactly my offense looks like with personnel, Cam Ward would be the guy I would bet on.
And you'd be comfortable taking him early.
So the one follow-up I wanted to have with that on Cam was this. Puts himself in the draft process last year. Doesn't like – he was in. He was going. And doesn't like what he hears.
4th-round pick.
Yeah. Goes to Miami. So what changed for him on the field when you compare Washington State – because the ball of clay is the same. It was the same ball of clay at Washington State. What changed from Washington State Cam to Miami Cam?
The number one thing is just the – avoiding negative plays, and he still does. Like, you watch the Cal tape, you watch almost every tape, he's gonna put the ball in harm's way in a way that he needs to reel back on that. But at Washington State, it was running himself into way too many sacks. It was putting the ball in harm's way, turnover-worthy plays. He really cut back on that and was able to play more with what the defense is giving him, not force something that wasn't there. And so that's just part of any quarterback's maturation.
Yeah.
And it's one thing to say it and say, oh, he'll get better, he'll mature. It's another thing to see it on the field. So I think Cam Ward is a good example of, he could have gone to the draft. And Jaden Daniels, if he came out after his 3rd year or 4th year, he would have been a 4th-round pick. But he goes to LSU and, he takes another step and turns into the top 2 pick, and obviously had the rookie year he did. Not saying Cam Ward's going to have that same trajectory, but there's something to be said. I know age matters. I know, like, for some teams more than others, you want younger guys. I get it, but at quarterback, give me the guy with the experience. And it's unique year where the top two guys, both Shador and Cam, are. Cam's a 5-year guy, but Shador's a 4-year guy.
They played a lot.
They played a lot of football where it's. Maybe he's not 21 years old, but give me the experience. Look at what Bo Nix did last year. Jaden Daniels, Michael Penix had, when he got on the field, had success because of the experience that he had in college. So if we're talking running back, sure, give me the 20-year-old. If we're talking quarterback, give me the guy with the on-field experience. And this is a unique class where there's questions, but at least these guys at the top all have that experience.
There's no doubt, and that's a great question about just kind of the evolution of how these evaluations go and kind of where you get to.
All right, that is part 1 of our conversation with Dane Brugler. Coming up next, part 2 of that conversation. You're going to get smarter, kids. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily, presented by Ballybet, official sports betting partner of your Cleveland Browns on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Part 2 of our conversation with the Athletics' Dane Brugler.
You like Cam a lot. Do you think one of the things, obviously when I was going through my notes on Cam and watching the tapes, Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson and what they have done, I would imagine, for your profession and just the league in general is it used to be if you didn't understand their base, you didn't understand their footwork,
right.
you didn't understand their arm angles, or perhaps sometimes they appeared nonchalant and drifting and this and that. It was that was a red flag, right? It was like, well, that's not going to work at the NFL because so much was under center, so much was dependent on the drop back matching and the timing and all that. Now you see that I bet you don't even think twice about it. You're like, that's just his style, and it works. It can. Right. We've seen that it can work.
Creation, it's become a part of the quarterback position. We talked about this last year with Caleb. Because he had a little bit of that to him, where, okay, are we drafting him for how he wins from the pocket, or are we drafting him because he can make fun plays? And you know what? Part of the NFL is 60% of the time, the play does not go exactly how you expect it to go. And so your quarterback has to be able to find plan B, plan C. Sometimes that means leaving the pocket. Sometimes it means stepping up and creating an extra half beat so the route can come open. So it is not quite as simple as, okay, can he make the throw? Can he, like Kyle McCord is a really good quarterback in this draft, outstanding from the pocket, but I worry about the mobility and can he create? And because of that, teams are kind of, they like him more in the third round, fourth round because they worry about the creation aspect, which has become such a big part of today's NFL.
How do you, with a guy like Shedeur, who Pat Shurmur, obviously coordinator, a pretty porous offensive line, and indifference to the run game, how do you balance what he is trying to do to have success at Colorado and trying to win games there and what was on him to win games there versus when things go right in their scheme and it's dropped and it's out? 74% completion percentage this year, so obviously he's incredibly accurate.
Right.
How do you balance those things when you think about, we talked about the hero ball, the drifting, all of that stuff? How do you find the happy medium on all that?
And it's why quarterback's so difficult to evaluate, because of all these guys are asked to do so many different things within their own offense. And at Colorado, all those things are true about the offensive line, lack of the run game, and because of that, he had 74% completions, but he also had one of the highest rates of throws within 10 yards. And so, 74%. But if you eliminate that, if you take away all screens, the highest completion percentage in college football this year was Will Howard. So, it's just interesting. And Shedeur was still up there. He was somewhere in the top 10. So it's not like he free fell. But you take away the screens, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, maybe he's the 74% doesn't look as impressive with a downfield offense. And he's made downfield throws. It's not like you're worried about can he really push the ball. But trying to scout a player independent of what he is asked to do is the challenge. You have to divorce him from the situation and say, okay, how is this going to fit with what we want to do? And it's different from scheme to scheme, but I think Shedeur will be liked a little bit more by some teams, not as much by others. My big question with Shedeur is, can he elevate everybody around you and really throw everybody on your back and go win games? That's where I have kind of a little bit of a question mark. Is he a truck or a trailer? I think he's more of a trailer than a true truck. Not to say he can't start. He can. He can start in the NFL, and I think he's a first-round pick. I think he'll start in the NFL. Just not quite what I'd be looking for in a top 5 pick myself.
So with that all being said, if you're put yourself in Andrew Berry's shoes, you're sitting at 2. And you and I both remember the year 2016. You were sitting at 2 behind the Tennessee Titans. And in that draft, for the Browns anyway, and I can say this with authority, Jared Goff that was it. Yeah. There were 2 quarterbacks that year as well as Goff and Carson Wentz. They were not into Carson Wentz. They were into Jared Goff. No way Tennessee's taking a quarterback. They just drafted Mariota. And then the Rams trade up. Browns don't. End up moving around. We know how that draft went. End up with Corey Coleman in the first round. If you're that convicted about Cam, then do you just say, let's figure it out and let's get to 1 and let's not have to worry about anything?
Yeah. You have the conversations, at the very least. You find out, okay, what's the price? What are we talking? Are we talking about 2 3s? We're talking about a 2 and a 3. What type of price would it take to move up from 2 to 1? Because a lot of it will depend on other offers they're getting. It's not necessarily, it's just 1 pick. Well, what are the Giants offering? Yeah. What are the Raiders offering? And that will obviously inflate the price. New general manager in Tennessee. Titans, I really do believe the Titans are going to trade out of one. They don't have a third-round pick. They pick it like in the early 30s, and then they don't pick until like the 4th round. So it's a big gap that I know the new general manager wants to add more picks, kind of build up that roster with the way that he sees it. What is that going to look like, though? What type of trade offer are they willing to accept? But at the very least, you find that out. You figure out what is it going to cost to move up, and then that's when you kind of go back to your brain trust and figure out if it's worth it or not.
Yeah, it is such a subjective thing, and you were talking earlier about the Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud thing.
Right.
What is an example of a guy who you had a strong feeling on, and then it got to the league? And so much of this is circumstances, right? Like the situation. I mean, that's 90% of it.
Yes.
Are you in a position to succeed once you land there?
If the Bears drafted Mahomes instead of Trubisky, and Trubisky goes to the Chiefs, what do those two careers look like?
Of course, sliding doors is
fascinating.
Crazy.
What because coaching and the circumstances, situation, all that factors in so much for a quarterback, no doubt.
Is there a guy though that landed in a good spot that didn't turn into what you thought that he would be? And conversely, is there a guy who landed in a great spot and was significantly better than you thought he would be?
I mean, are you asking if I've had misses at quarterback? Because the answer is yes.
I know.
So.
No, I just and I'm curious in how you apply that to the process. Everybody has them.
Yeah,
there's no hit
doubt.
rate. This is a completely subjective process. And the thing that we've talked about is there's no sure thing at defensive end.
There's no sure thing
there's
anywhere.
no sure thing at corner or receiver. There's misses all over the place.
The words "sure thing" should never be uttered when it comes to the draft.
No.
I mean, last year's a good example with Bo Nix.
Yeah.
Bo Nix, and I thought he could start in the league, but I didn't think that he would lead the Broncos to the playoffs in year one.
Yeah.
Now, again, you talk about circumstances and coaching. Getting paired up with Sean Payton, that matters. Turns out Sean Payton knows a thing or two about quarterbacks. So, and it was funny because during that draft, it was like the initial shock was, oh, man, Bo Nix went 12. Wow. And then it's like, oh, Sean Payton. All right. Yeah, I might be wrong on this one because Sean Payton knows what he's doing.
I'm going to give you a funny story about that. This was so early in the process. It was now or maybe even earlier in the year.
Yeah.
I had a buddy who he's in like medical sales, was at some conference, sits down with a lady who happens to be the wife of somebody like well up the personnel side. And she's like, oh, yeah, we're drafting Bo Nix. So he texted me. This was like January.
That's right.
Of that year. And he's like, Broncos are taking Bo Nix, 100%. And then they did. And we were like, Jimmy Bang Bang had it. He had it.
Yeah.
He had it all along. So you never know sometimes
know.
where the intel will come. And I'm happy that didn't derail their plans because I think that might have caused a little bit of strife. But the good news is it worked out there. But, yeah, it is interesting. It's everything. We know that there are no sure things. And I love how you said that in a draft. And we've been saying the sure thing in the NFL is if without a quarterback you cannot win. Period. The end.
I kind of like the idea in this class of –
I want two of them.
Well, we rarely see guys more – like it's only happened once in the last 7 years. We have more day 2 quarterbacks than day 1 quarterbacks. Because usually if you're good enough to play in the NFL, you're going in round 1. But this year I think is a little unique with Jackson Dart and Tyler Shuck. And Jalen Milroe is a little more of a wild card. But I wouldn't be surprised at all if we have more day 2 quarterbacks than day 1. And I don't know. I like the idea of if I can get Tyler Shuck in the early 3rd round, I would rather do that. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, but I'd rather do that than take Shedeur too. That's my own person. Even though like I have Shedeur rated higher than Tyler Shuck.
Sure.
But getting him in the early 3rd because he's 26, going to be a 26-year-old rookie and all of that. And if it works out, great. If it doesn't, then it's a 3rd round pick's not going to stop me from drafting a quarterback early next year. So, but will Shuck make it that long? I don't know. A lot of teams like him.
Let's go down this road for a second, then we're going to get the final question, which I love because we want to talk weapons here.
Okay.
But if Cam Ward is off the table for you're running the Browns, Cam Ward's off the table, you're a 2, are you taking somebody or then are you in full let's try to get whatever we can get mode from an asset standpoint? Yeah,
you definitely, I think you would love to move back. Now, the opportunity to draft the best non-quarterback in the draft is pretty appealing, whether that's Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter. Hunter, you plug him into this offense, all of a sudden you have an immediate guy with juice. It's going to be an interesting thing here with Hunter as teams talk to him and really kind of boil down, hey, where do you want to play? Of course, he's going to say both, but teams are going to really press him and say, okay, well, let's just for a second say you can't play both. You have to play one. Which would you rather play? And it'll be interesting to see how those conversations play out. I think most teams that I talk to like him as a corner, full-time corner, and then you mix in some plays on offense. But I know other teams want that juice on offense.
Well, Brown said
they
Brown's
very
probably
said
being right, and I get
receiver.
it. You watch any Shedeur tape, and inevitably you see Travis Hunter going and making plays. And so the chance to add that, drop that into your offense, would be pretty appealing. It'd be tough to trade away from that. So it would depend. You're going to leave the phone lines open. You're going to see what you could get. But it would be tough to trade away from either Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter, whichever one the Browns have higher on the board.
So let's just say we're running things, and we're going to listen to you, but we're going to still take Shedeur at 2.
Okay.
We'll take Shuck in the 3rd round. Now at pick 33, who are your favorite weapons in that range? The Browns have 3 picks in the 3rd round as well. Give us some guys. In my mind, and I've already said it, I want 2 quarterbacks. I want a receiver, a running back, and another tight end. That's what I want out of those top 5. We want weapons. We want to score the football here on the CBD Browns.
That's music to my ears. Yeah, I said how this is not a great receiver group. It'll be interesting to see how many go in the first. Is it T-Mac will go, probably Burden will go. I think Igbuka will go. It's Matthew Golden, maybe not. I think
From Texas. Yep.
Yeah, if Matthew Golden is there, I like that fit a lot. He's not the biggest, not necessarily the fastest, but just a dang good receiver. He will go up and get the football. His routes got better and better every year. I think there's, even though I don't like the 40's good, not great, there's an explosive nature, so he can uncover. He's a guy that doesn't need. He doesn't have a receiver on his hip constantly because he knows how to get open. So if Matthew Golden is there in the early second, I like that fit a lot. This is such a deep running back group. It's loaded. Obviously, Ashton Genty gets most of the attention, and he should. He's unbelievable. You could argue he's the best player in the draft. But it's not like the running back, it just falls off. Like Omarion Hampton and Caleb Johnson are tremendous. Travion Henderson is more of the you want him more of an electric committee back.
Is he like Gibbs?
He's like Gibbs, but I think what makes Gibbs so special, aside from just the burst, is he's so good at reading the offensive line. He understands football geometry. He understands where Travion's not quite like that. Where he watches tape, and as an inside runner, wish he had a little more patience here. Wish he didn't run into his own blocker here. But if you give him a lane, he's going to scoot. He's going to go. And so Travion's more of that electric. Yeah, you try to capture that Jahmyr Gibbs in a bottle type of thing. So yeah, he would be really good in that situation. Tight end, this is like running back is loaded. I love Colston Loveland. I love Tyler Warren at the top. I don't think it's a debate between those two. It's just a preference. Do you want the upside guy? Do you want the guy that's just a dang good football player in Tyler Warren? Both those guys are going to be NFL stars. But then after that, I love Elijah Arroyo.
When I watched the Cam tape, I remember I told him, I was like,
go with the 2 Hurricane
I like this tight end. Yeah,
offense.
Go 12 personnel. Let's go.
But Mason Taylor's awesome. Mason Taylor just does everything.
Yep.
And exactly what you would expect from Jason Taylor's kid. None of these guys they're more pass catchers and blockers, but they can get the job done. And I'm a big Gunnar Helm fan too. Gunnar Helm, I think he's the 5th tight end of the 5, but he's
what about Gibbe's boy from Bowling Green?
Bowling Green, are they FCS or?
Shots fired at Gibby.
Wow.
Oh my
no,
God,
Fannin. Hey, look.
Ouch.
Fannon's a Northeast Ohio kid, so I like Fannin a lot.
Just goes right for the
by the way,
respect.
Come back anytime.
Anytime
Come back
you want.
anytime.
Yeah, we like that.
Absolutely.
That's very good.
Fannon's a Northeast Ohio kid, so I'm always going to root for those kids. How do you argue with 117 catches? I don't care what level you're playing at. I don't care what conference you're playing in. He's more of the little undersized H-back. What is he? But he does 2 things really well. He's straight line explosive, and he catches the ball no matter what. And okay, I can work with guys like that. So yeah, he'll go somewhere on day 2 and be a good player. He's 20 years old. He doesn't turn 21 until July.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Great talking to you, buddy.
The best.
You're the best.
Now the combine can start.
That's right. We've done it. Yeah.
It's
official.
It's underway.
It's official.
The great Dane Brugler. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, guys.
Just incredible stuff all week long. You learned so much. There is consensus of thought. There is consensus at the top of the draft. You already have this movement. You have the Stafford thing resolved by the end of the week. And have a feeling there's going to be a lot more of this over the next couple of weeks in the league. It takes a village to do all that we do at the Combine. G-Man, Dr. J, the great Gibby, Siciliano stopping by on a daily basis. It was pure joy all week long, and now the business of the NFL coming up very, very shortly. This is going to be fast and furious the next couple of weeks leading into free agency. The next level is coming up next. We are back Monday.